one of the things that was apparent early on in the Afghanistan war, just watching, mainstream news, was there was sort of the early foray into turning into a nation building mission was making sure that the kids got to schools. And everybody who did a report on it on the news would say, yes, we're getting more and more kids into schools. Okay, what kind of school? That's great. They're learning math. Maybe they're learning critical race theory. Maybe they're learning something legitimate, right? And I say that tongue in cheek, but no, they're in these madrasas where they're basically learning to hate America. That they all want to be the next generation. They all want to be the next generation of pilots who don't learn how to land. That sort of thing. It's what, and that was seen as. I mean, that was the mainstream view of that in 2003, 2004, and did it ever improve?
No, it was never real, right? So here's the thing: is when you see this again, I'm running, they're stretching, and so the unit goes out. They get a tasking from somewhere. How many kids are in school? And here's how little we know, and this is true to this instant right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows how many schools are there, and that's the best they can do is go, we don't know. And so all the time,
well, don't they have an Afghani Department of Education, Pete? Come on,
sure,
now.
Of course they do, right? And that guy is unreliable. How about that, right? Because
they should have tens of thousands of employees in their Afghani Department of Education, just like we do.
Yeah. So the Afghans absolutely have a Ministry of Education. And that guy has a job, but we're so bad at partnering with this person that we often dominate what they do. And so what I learned to do was go, hey, captain or major or colonel, whoever it was, let's go out to that school a couple of days later. And they're like, why? I'm like, because I bet there aren't kids there. And if there are, it's a good indication that it's working. And if it's not, wouldn't you want to know? And look, honestly, it was never that hard to convince them. They're like, that's a great idea. Let's go. And so we would show up randomly. Now, I'm not big on showing up randomly, but in these cases, I am. Like, we know where the school is. We've been there. We've seen the pictures. We've seen the dude that teaches them. Let's go see if they're there. And they were never there. Never, ever, ever were they there. Right. And then saying girls went to school and understanding what they were doing are two totally different things. So, okay, we reported a lot of girls at school. How'd you do that? Well, we sent a military unit out there and we counted girls in school. Okay, great. Did they know you were coming? Well, yeah, of course. Okay, great. Okay.
What did these kids do when they weren't in school?
Yeah, I don't know. Good question.
Right. And they don't have they were working on their farm that was just trying to survive in the middle of a war. I mean,
yeah, sure. They're doing whatever kids do on extended summer vacation, right? They do all those things. They throw rocks. They maybe herd sheep, whatever it is. They're doing survival level stuff, and it's going to be different in every valley you're in. The point being is that they weren't in school. No one knew what the curriculum was. No one knew who the teacher was. No one knew there should be daily attendance, right? I mean, that's like one of the first things a teacher's going to do. Who's here today? So I can assess what you guys are doing. Those things, Brad, they don't have those records. So this is what would happen. Every single unit would come and they would say, hey, Pete and your team, how many schools are in this district? And that would be their official request. And I would send my response back up is ask the partner, the American partner, to ask his partner. Ask because I'm not the partner, right? I'm an augmentee. And so that captain would have to go over to the governor and say, how many schools are in the area? And then he'd be like, I don't know. You want me to find out? And then he would maybe help them, maybe he wouldn't. But that's their relationship, right? So we're so bad at this that we have no idea who's in school, what they're being taught, who the teachers are, any of that. We don't have, on a day-to-day, we have no idea. If it's important, wouldn't we want to measure that?
But we never reported. We never reported that back. We had numbers to report back. Obviously, where do those come from? They just make them up?
No, I mean, they go out to the school and then the Afghans or the Iraqis, whoever it is, right? They herd a bunch of kids into school. The word gets out, but it's not in a way that makes any sense in terms of sustainability. It's not a real win. It's a performance. So you have to understand a lot of what happens is a performance. We report to ourselves success, and then we look for the metrics that equal success. We don't look for the affect. So Rich and I went out and studied education. A lot of kids were learning how to read via a radio literacy program. And usually these things didn't work. And so when they did work, like all these kind of programs, not just radio literacy, but any of these kind of programs that we could up. So we're like, has any kid in this valley used a radio to learn any languages? And when dad's like, oh, my kid does that. Like, we will give you a soccer ball if you can bring your kid over here in a couple hours. Whenever you think it's safe to do so, you let us know. We'll come right back out. And this is not very far from the camp. And we would love to talk to him. Is that okay? And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. He'd be so proud. I'm so proud of him. He's learning how to read and write. And so sure enough, this kid comes back and we're like, can we borrow your book for a couple of days? We'll give you like whatever you need here. Take a pic of all this stuff. Matter of fact, take all of it. Right. And so we take the book and we go through the book and we look and like, this kid's really doing lessons. You see him start with bad handwriting and he's learned from the radio. He's learning how to read and write. Not all the kids, but especially this one kid was. And so it kind of was working. And it was an area where we could start to link people to the government and say, hey, your government is trying to help you do this. Come to them for resources. And maybe your kid will learn to read and write. Let's talk about this kid's lesson. Let's put this out there so people can see it. Obviously in a safe way, because you don't want to, tie them to the Taliban. But there's ways to deal with that too. By the way, here's one way to deal with that, right? When you're talking about education, whatever it is, you use their stuff against them, right? And so you make the school, you call it the Mullah Omar school. And now it's like sacred because they're not going to do anything that harms the name Mullah Omar, or you let the people name the school. What should the school be named? We love to name the school for them. No. You guys get together. We're going to sit in the back wall. What do you guys want to name this school? How many kids are going to be there every day? What do you guys think is possible here? And work from that starting point instead of just saying there's 350,000 girls in school today, right now, about 2 days, and they're not there. And
talk about books. Talk about books, Pete. You put this in the article as well. The ultimate responsibility for delivering books.
Right. And as we were studying education, one of the things we figured out, and this was through a lot of meetings that the Army wasn't able to build, right? They needed a guy like me and Rich there to make this happen because we were able to do things outside of the Army machine. And so I'd built trust, established testable trust. And I said, hey, Governor, here's what we're going to work on next. It would be great if you could help me meet some people who are influential that are, because you guys are all desperate about education. Let's figure this out. And one of the things he said was female education is my number one priority. And then he proceeded to list 5 categories before that were more important, right? And that doesn't make sense until you hear him explain it. Safety, safety and security 3 times. You had to teach boys how to read and write. And then there was something else, right? But if you didn't have those things met, you couldn't get to girls going to school. It wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So he explained the order to me. Yes, they were his number one priority. It was the thing he wanted to do the most, but he wasn't capable of doing it because he had these limiting factors. Okay. So with that in mind, we're learning about books, education, and everything else. We have all kinds of resources. And we had a guy that I'm going to talk to in a couple hours. His name's Colonel Howe. He's like, help us figure this out. We have all these books. We want to do it right. You guys are good at this. And so what happens is we finally get to this meeting where it's the Ministry of Education, the senior guy for let's call it the state, the province. We have 2 very senior family elders who are able to speak for other family elders. And then particularly in this one region that we were in. And then we had a religious elder there. And we didn't ask this guy to come. We didn't expect him to come. He just showed up. So we know that we got a good Afghan-based thing. And we worked on their schedule. When do you want us? Where do you want us? And if they said at their office, we went to their office. If the Army dropped us off and left, that was great. And we said to them, it's important for us that you guys feel safe and that we don't expose you to any kind of harm. As long as you guys think you can keep us safe, we'll go wherever you want and whatever times and everything else. We completely put our faith in their ability to do this, and they were desperate to get it right. And basically, they came down with the word and they said, it is inappropriate for you guys to ever bring books directly to the schools or to the kids. You should never, ever, ever bring books directly to me at the Ministry of Education. That's dangerous for me. Don't do that. I have trucks. I will come get them at a time when it's safe for me to do it. I will contact you. I'll work with your schedule, but I'm going to come to your camp where I come all the time, and I'm going to grab those books and I will distribute it. And then the family elders are like, that's exactly right. You guys won't do it. He will. We want him to do his job. Here's the family elders holding the government accountable. We want this. We want the government to be able to do something for the people and the people to see value in it, right? And these are elders who are on the executive elder council, for lack of, they're the senators of this province. And they're saying, this is how you will do this. You're not doing your part. Do your part. So now this guy's honor bound and culturally bound to do it. And then the religious elder is just shaking his head the whole time. And we asked him, like, what do you think? And he's like, this is a good thing. This is how it should be done. So you have all these people sign off. We write all this up. Everybody in our state gets the report. They all have access to it, including the State Department. Fast forward 1 year, and a lady named Ann Smedjinghoff and 4 of the Americans blown up and killed. And they weren't the only ones harmed. There was another State Department woman that was there. And what were they doing? Well, they were delivering books to school, the kids in school. Now, I don't know why they would ever be doing that in this area. We had solved this problem. We had all agreed we weren't going to do this anymore. And it's not Ann's fault. She's just the name they associate with this attack. There are other Americans. We don't remember their names. But She is dead. The other people are dead because they were going out to deliver books and to have a photo op because they were trying to perform victory, right?
And if you don't know that's an issue, you could easily get caught up in that because that seems like a good feel-good thing to do. I mean, even put the photo op thing aside and just how selfish and stupid that is.
Yeah.
Put that aside. Showing up with books to a school, I mean, you know, maybe some apple pie, maybe some.
Do that here. Do that in the United States.
You're a hero.
I'm saying show up in as a foreign entity. Have China show up with a bunch of books.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's not a very good look. But I mean, we kind of like that here. You know, that's kind of how we do business. Is you donate something, show up, and not just take credit, but like express your generosity. I mean, that's expected here.
But now put them in there and make them American. It just doesn't. It doesn't work there, right? Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. I would say it doesn't. I would say parents would be pissed.
Somebody certainly didn't get the memo.
Yeah, and the thing is, they may have died that day no matter what they were doing, but they shouldn't have been outside the camp doing that. They shouldn't have been on foot walking around delivering books because it's wholly inappropriate, and we knew better, right? And so when you start acting like that, because this wasn't the first time they did this after we left, they did continue to do these things. Whatever. So
is that a lack of institutional memory? I mean, is that because you're rotated around that people just forget these important details?
No, there's a guy who was there. His name was Tim Basher. He was there. He was a State Department guy. He'd been there before me. He was there after me. So he absolutely knew about this. Either he didn't have the influence to stop it. But it isn't about that. Like they sent a dude in from Kandahar to go on this mission as part of this celebration of how they were winning and doing all these great things. And knowing this, when you read Secretary Kerry's eulogy of Vance Medjinghoff, you'll hear the arrogance, and you hear that the words that he says about the terrorists are really the words about us and our need to over-influence things and our disregarding of local customs and local norms and the things that are actually happening on the ground. He can't hear that or see that. So the things he says illustrate his arrogance and ignorance. And again, this is the problem with Secretary Gates, Secretary Kerry, Secretary Clinton. All these people have no idea. And a guy like me can talk all day long, talk for almost an hour right now, right? And they don't care. They'll never listen. They won't believe me. But the reality is that they can't make a win show up. They can't do it. I can go out all day long. You tell me any program and I'll be like, here's why this doesn't work. Over and over again. Yeah, you're teaching and training these guys. Great. Okay, we had a judge in our province. It's like a state-sized government thing. How come you're not hearing cases? Well, none are brought before me. I don't know how you guys do it in America, but here a judge has cases brought before them. So when they bring me a case, even though I don't have any furniture and I just have a room for a court, I'll hear it. Line up lawyers. But we couldn't do that. And yet we reported that we had this thing. We made this guy out to be a bad guy, aligned with the Taliban. He's from another area, wouldn't show up to work. And he's like, I'll show up to work when there's work to do. By the way, the rule of law guy, an American contractor lawyer, right, who's there to work on rule of law, that guy promised me a gun. I don't feel safer because none of these people are my people. So I stay here as long as I can. And then my partner rotates out and he stays here as long as he can. We hate it here. I don't feel safer. These aren't my people. And so then Rich and I go to the chief of police, the PCOP, and he's got people lined up outside his door. And so we talk to these guys. What are you here for? My kid, it's on all the same stories, like with dads. My kid did this dumb thing. My kid killed this person. My kid got in a fight. My kid stabbed somebody. My kid. How come you're not going to court? Are you kidding me? No. We go to the PCOP. He takes care of this. So you have the police chief handling things in a tribal fashion. That is their rule of law. He was the guy. So it was working. It just didn't work as we designed it. And so instead of realizing that, we just continue to brief that this judge was a piece of crap. But the reality was that we did not have the capacity to build an active court system. Same thing was true in Iraq. How come you guys aren't going to court? We don't know what's going to happen there. It's too just. We may not get what we want. We know what we'll get out of the civil court here in Iraq, privately in the tribes. We know what we'll get. We can handle that. We don't like it either. We hate that we're in the situation. But if we go there and we lose, can't handle that. And so they rejected the courts outright.